Alright, this is going to be my presentation of my Arctic frog that I did on Photoshop. To start, I'm going to take away everything that I did and start it from the very beginning. So to begin, I made this group Ice 2, and in Ice 2 it started off as being this photo, actually this photo here. Let's see, this photo here is originally what I started with. But when I was doing this, I added different clipping masks, which was one with levels, which gave it a little darker. And the black dots here are for when the actual frog gets in there, for the shadowing and for the to add shininess to his body, which I did on the layer mask. Then I added this, which is a hue and saturation, to give it a little darker tint, and then finally the last level to give it the Arctic feel. So closing that group, we'll go to the next group, which is Ice, which I used the magnetic lasso tool to move it, and it originally came from this right here. I actually took a magnetic lasso tool and cut all this out, rasterized it, and then flipped it, creating this right here. And it started out being as the gray ice as you've seen before. Then I added another clipping mask of levels, which gave it a little darker tint, and then a gradient map, which the gradient map is kind of a blue tint, as you can see right here. Moving on, then I took the frog layer, and the frog layer is composed of a whole bunch of stuff. So if we turn off all the different layers in here, down to what I started with, so the original frog I started out with was this picture right here. Let's see, not that, this. I cut him out, flipped him, and then put him in my picture, and then turned him kind of monochromatic, or black and white. So then I added a photo filter with the color blue and did a density of 38% to kind of give him that blue tint. Then I added the next layer, which is the green layer, and put in an effects of inner glow on him to give that shiny feel. So I have basically the bottom frog is for the shadow, and this is the actual frog that we're going to base off of. So then I added a gradient map, which gave him the blue hue, and it's pretty much the same color throughout. Then I added a inner glow effects with basically a layered map, and this is to show the shininess of the frog here, throughout here, and you can see it on the layer mask whenever you look at it. The next layer is his eyes, which I made green, which are the original eyes, but then adding a photo filter to them to kind of give them a blue-green tint to match the frog better. Next is part of the mouth, which is actually kind of erased, just little pieces here and there. And I added a clipping mask, levels 4, a hue and saturation, it turns it black and white. Then there's layer 2 copy, which is the actual mouth again, which I took this from this picture here, cut it all out with a magnetic lasso, and then used free transform with warp and kind of made it fit the shape of this frog's upper jaw. Then added a level number 4 to the frog copy, and the adjustments of the tutorial I used, and then use hue and saturation to give it a black and white feel. Just a hair when the layer mask just went through with black and just kind of touched here and there on the layer mask. So I'll close that group and on to the tongue. And on the tongue, we'll start from the very, just as I've done before, remove all these layers. And this is basically what I started with the tongue. It's a copy of the tongue. Then I took it and made it, put the effects of bevel and emboss on it to kind of give it a bunched out feel, to make it separate of all the different of the picture. Then add the color to it, and as you notice the texture isn't there, add a color balance to it. And then the next layer, there's a texture to it, and what I did was, as I took a lasso and I cut out on the original frog, his skin, and then I took it and stretched out with liquefy and with free transform and the warp aspect to match it to the tongue, and then created a clipping mask so it looked like a real tongue. Then on layer 4, all it is this shadow of what it looks like with his tongue actually sticking to the ice. Alright, so we'll close that group. On to the dragonflies. And the dragonflies are pretty simple. Really all it is the picture that I took, and I took it from the same tutorial that I've got this from, and just shrink it down and kind of as far as the color goes, I made the opacity only 40%, then added a gradient map clipping mask to the same tint that I've used on the entire thing, which is kind of a blue, light blue. I made the opacity on that 0% to still give it that blue tint like it's stuck inside the ice. Close this group. And on Dragonfly number 2, I did the same thing as I did on the previous. As you remove that, it doesn't really do much. It just changes the hue just a hair, just barely enough. So if I was to mess with the opacity, you'd see the actual square. So if I take it down, where it changes the ice cube. And finally, the last part is just my name, and it's just a text box that I put on the bottom. And this is a presentation of my Arctic frog. Thank you.